Warm welcome to all present here. What a perfect finale we are having. We have the esteemed presence of Dr. Suresh Havare and Amit Havare. It's a perfect father-son duo, and this is our sixth session of the second edition of CREDAI MCHI Knowledge Series on Construction Management. The participants we have gone through various sessions from stalwarts uh, and experts on value engineering, design guidelines, cost optimization during construction, affordable housing, etc. So this is a great finale. I will quickly move on to introduce our speaker. Dr. Suresh Havare does not need an introduction. He's a very renowned personality. Still, in a few lines, I will try to capture what Sir has done all through. He has recently completed his PhD in affordable nano housing from the Mumbai University. He has also authored multiple books, one of which is on nano housing. And Sir, it's his trademark concept. He would be discussing the same. He has earned his on the academic front. He has earned his BTech degree in chemical engineering from Nagpur University, Maharashtra, India. He completed his post-graduation studies in nuclear engineering from Baba Atomic Research Center, India. He has done his MA in history. He is a merit scholar from Nagpur University and winner of gold medal in engineering from Nagpur University. On the professional front, and this is something which will really amaze our fraternity, he has served as a senior nuclear scientist in the Department of Atomic Energy for 27 years, such a long, illustrious career as a scientist. He has authored 37 research papers in nuclear engineering, which have been published in prominent international and national journals. He led a team of Indian nuclear scientists to IAEA in Vienna. On the business front, he has been actively involved in business since the last 25 years. Havare Group of companies needs no introduction. They've delivered millions of square foot across MMR. He has initiated several philanthropic activities. On the social front, he has served as a trustee on India's largest port, JNPT. Presently, he is the chairman of India's second largest temple, Sri Sai Baba Sanstha Trust Shirdi, Maharashtra, for the last 4 years. Dr. Suresh Havare ji has also created, anchored, and presented two TV shows on business, each having 20 episodes. He has authored more than 10 books on business and entrepreneurship. All of them are bestsellers and translated into multiple languages. His personal hobbies on mountaineering, wherein he scaled Island Peak Mountain in Nepal up to 6120 meters. He trekked up to Mount Everest Base Camp. He has been awarded more than 29 prestigious international and national business awards. Sir, it's really an honor and privilege for us at CREDAI MCHI to have you on this forum. Now, I would go on to proceed and introduce Amit Havare. Amit is a friend and a senior from my alma mater, JBIMS. He has been educated in the strategy management, did an executive program from ISB Hyderabad. He has completed his 2 years degree full time from Jamnalal Bajaj with a first class in marketing. In fact, he had topped the marketing batch at Jamnalal Bajaj, and he's completed his BE engineering. Amit is also the CEO and joint MD of Havare Properties. They have numerous projects, more than 20 projects which are ongoing, and various awards which he has won. Amit has also worked in the corporate in the MNC Procter and Gamble, where he was key account manager sales and had a very successful stint over there. This was after his marketing experience with Coca-Cola India. So Amit has a perfect blend of corporate experience, which he's inculcated in the family business and has taken the legacy forward. On the academic, scholastic, and awards front, there are way too many to even mention. grand welcome and such a perfect finale of father son, Dr. Suresh Havare and Amit Havare. Over to you, sir. The presentation, the normal process is that the participants, they ask questions on the chat box. So Amit, you could have a tab on the questions which are asked on the chat box, and later on we give all the participants a chance to really ask questions live. Over to you, sir. The stage is all yours. And sorry, just to interrupt, we acknowledge the presence of Director of JBIMS, Dr. Kavita Lagate. Kavita Lagate ma'am has been both Amit Havare and my professor at JBIMS. A warm welcome to you, ma'am. And we also acknowledge the presence of Dr. Srinivasan sir from Jamnalal Bajaj. He is a senior professor in marketing.
Thank you, Harshad. Looking forward to interesting session. Thanks.
Thank you. Over to you, Amit and sir. Yes. We are waiting to hear from you.
Thank you, Harshal, for the very nice introduction you have given. I will be talking on the topic of nano housing, the concept that is very close to my heart. I have been working on the concept for the last 13 years. It started somewhere around 2008. I have completed my PhD on the subject of affordable nano housing in the year 2016. And I had registered for my PhD in 2013. I wanted to complete it before I become 60 years. And I could do that within that period. There was a small shift in my faculty. I belong to science and technology, but then because I had to shift to this business, I had to change my faculty from science and technology to trade and commerce. And for last 25 years, I have been in this field of trade and commerce. Friends, this concept of nano housing is nothing but innovation. And I will come to the fact that why you need innovation in the business. We'll go one by one. I will be talking about my book also. I have written a book on nano housing, and this book has become a bestseller. It was published in the year 2019, towards end of the 19, and last 1 year it has been selling very well in the market. People have been giving a good response about the book, and it has become a bestseller. I will be talking more on the book and concept, little bit on a concept, and the concept will be explained in detail by Amit. Now, let me say something about the book. See, the book looks like this. It is in a size also, it is nano. It is not in a size of a normal book. Book is available all over on Amazon and everywhere. And this is based on my PhD thesis. Normally what happens is the PhD is completed, theses are presented, and they are kept under lock and key in the university somewhere, keep collecting dust, and nothing happens on that. I did not wanted that to be the fate of my PhD thesis. I wanted it to go to the public, and that is why I have published this book based on my PhD thesis. I have worked both on theory and practical while completing my PhD. And because in business, I could work on theory and practical both. And let me share with you that both have been of immense help in my business also. So it is a small house that teaches the world to think big. And this is what the need is. I have collected global data as well as national and local data. If I give you the example of Mumbai, what is being built is not what is needed, and what is needed is not being built. And there is a difference. What is needed is a nano house, and the people look for such a nano house in Mumbai and around Mumbai, but the reality is many of the builders, they have stopped constructing one room kitchen, 1 BHK, they construct 2 BHK and above. So the whole lot of people from LIG, MIG, economically weaker section that gets left out from the market. So this is a niche market, and this is a niche area which nano housing is defining. Let me give you three global important observations which I observed during my study. My study was based on global, national, and state level and local level phenomena. There are three important global observations. The first thing is about the unauthorized housing. My observation is that unauthorized housing is rampant all over the world in third world countries. And you will be surprised to know the extent of unauthorized housing. It is to the tune of 75%. 75% of the housing is unauthorized housing in third world countries. In India also, it is rampant. Recently, you might have experienced that whole of almost whole of Ulhasnagar was full of unauthorized housing, and government had to regularize that. Thane district is claimed to have 5 lakh buildings which are unauthorized. And I'm quoting an example of Delhi, wherein there are 1,731 unauthorized colonies. These are not buildings, these are colonies which have been regularized by passing a bill in the Lok Sabha recently. And unauthorized housing is so rampant, and it is clear that no country or no government has machinery to demolish this rampant unauthorized housing. What has to be done, and what is being done all over the world? It is to check it, test it, and if it is found suitable structurally, regularize it. Other than regularization, there is no other way for treating the unauthorized housing anywhere in the world, and that is what has to be done in our country also. I know there are fraternities from law who come heavily on unauthorized construction, but unauthorized construction or unauthorized housing, it is also known as informal housing in the world. This has to be looked at from the economic point of view. First of all, why it is thriving? There are economic reasons, economic incentives that has to be thought of, and government policies and lacuna in the processes. So instead of blanket demolition of unauthorized housing, no government has machinery. It has to be treated, and it has to be regularized. Similarly, there is a second phenomena which is in existence all over the world, and that is about rental housing. Rental housing in the developed countries, they have the colonies and colonies, buildings and buildings which are on a rental. But in our country, the rental housing is not that much in progress. Maybe because of the Rent Control Act and so many things happening in our country, the owners hesitate to rent their houses, and it becomes difficult to get it vacated, mainly contributing to the Rent Control Act and acts like this. But if you look at the size of rental housing in our country, I'll give you one example. See, the deficit of housing in Maharashtra, as claimed in 2011 census data, is of 19.4 lakh houses. And how many houses are locked in Maharashtra? That number is 20 lakhs. These are not the unsold houses. These are the houses sold in the market, purchased by the buyer, and he has kept it under lock and key. He has not rented it. Now the argument is, if these locked houses could be released into the market for rental business, then the deficit of housing automatically goes. This is a scene which I'm pointing out about Maharashtra, and it is a similar scenario that exists all over the country. This is about rental housing. My suggestion is the rental housing Rent Control Act, it has to be overhauled. It has to be developed in such a way that like in Western countries, Europe, there would be a time that rental colonies are built up and they are rented. Rental housing is very much in the need. The third important observation is about homeless people. Many of us, we think that homeless people are only in India or the third world countries. But let me tell you that they exist all over the world. Even in United States, there are homeless people. I will quote the figures from United States and also in India and Mumbai. Globally, there are 100 millions who are homeless. That is 10 crore of people do not have a house of their own in the world. In India, there are 1.77 millions, that is 17.7 lakhs people who do not have their own house. In United States, there are 0.55 million, that is 5.5 lakh people who do not have their own home. They are homeless. And see the phenomenon in Mumbai. If you look at, there are 57,000 who are homeless, and in New York, it is 76,501 who are homeless. It is more than Mumbai. Homeless people are more in New York than Mumbai. Los Angeles, which is a famous one of the famous city in the United States, it has 55,188 homeless people. The capital of United States, Washington DC, has 7,473 people who are homeless. Even the capital city of United States has homeless people. And what do they do? What facilities they have for the homeless people? They have night shelters built all over the cities. But United States, as on today, could provide night shelters only for 65% of the United States homeless people. You will find a scene in the night, there are people sleeping on the streets, sleeping on the roads. So these three phenomena, unauthorized housing, rental housing, and homelessness, these are the universal phenomenon which we should be, what I would say, sympathetic about. Now let me give you some idea about the stages of business and business recession. There are 4 stages that any business passes through. These stages are, there is a first stage, that is the introduction phase, whether it is a product or a company or a process or a service. When it is launched in the market, it goes through an introductory phase. There is a growth, but it is at a slower pace. And when it gets properly introduced, there is a second phase, that is a growth phase, where the sale or distribution or utilization is more at rapid speed, then there is a phase of stabilization, because it is not that only you will be there in the market. There will be other players also launching their product and services in the market, and there will be a competition. So people will go for the newer products, and there is a decline. So there will be a stabilization phase in your business, and at the end of stabilization phase, there is a decline phase. Now, you should be very much worried about this decline phase. Friends, every business goes through these 4 phases. If this decline phase, if it is gradual, say, then it is a manageable. It is not called a recession. But if it falls sharply, then it is called recession. So this indicates that there is a recession in the business. If you want to avoid this business, it is possible to avoid this decline in any of the business or product or services. And the methodology to avoid this decline is an innovation. You have to innovate your services, your product, your processes, your business, and then only you can come out of this phase of recession. Now, recession also I have studied, and I have put one chapter on recession in my book. If the pricing that falls sharply goes to a bottom and then starts rising, then this is called a V-shaped recession. So there are 4 types of recession: V, W, U, and L. These are popular in the industry. There is a cycle of boom and doom in the business. So every business will pass through this cycle, and over a period of time, you will definitely come across the recession. Real estate industry has faced 3 recessions in last 25 years, and every recession is a lesson learning period. It is a phase changing period, phase changing also. You will not find people before the recession and after the recession, people would have been changed. It would not be the same. I have assessed the global and national housing need. Let me tell you, globally, the housing need is 340 million houses are needed. That is 34 crores of houses. They are needed globally all over the world. World population is 7 billion. Now, national housing need is in urban areas, it is 18.88 million. Rural areas, it is 41.6 million. The total national need is 60.48 million. That is around 6 crores of houses. The data is based on 2011 census. Now we are in 2021. Over a period of 10 years, a lot of things must have got changed. And with the Modi government giving impetus to the houses for all, many houses would have got added into the stock, and the shortfall must have come down. But again, one thing is to be remembered, that there is a generation of housing need every day and every year. So that gets added to the shortfall. So the meaning is homeless people in India, homeless people all over the, that means homeless people all over the homeless people in India. Yeah, sorry for the interruption. Homeless people in India is around 60 crores. 6 crores is the shortfall in the housing. 5 people in each family. So it is 30 crores of people in India do not have their own house. That the percentage is around 25%. It is a huge percent that people do not have their own house. Now let me talk about Nano House. I take you back to the year 2008. If I ask you a question, what were you doing on 15th September 2008? Probably you will not be able to recall or answer. But friends, that was the day when the decline or fall of Lehman Brothers were declared in United States of America. Lehman Brothers was a investment banker. It was a very huge company, very old company, more than 100 years old. And you could see the fall of Lehman Brothers. It sent some shock waves in United States, in Europe, and all over the world. And it is on this background, because the fall of Lehman Brothers introduced recession in all the businesses. Real estate also faced the recession during that year, during that period. And during this period, friends, I started working on the concept of Nano House. Now, Lehman Brothers sent shockwaves all over the world. It came to our country also, and there was a recession and decline in all the industries. Let me tell you one more thing, that if there is a recession or drop in the sales in real estate industry, it affects 269 other industries. That much is the impact of real estate industry. Now, nano housing is, as I told, is an innovation based on blue ocean strategy. Let me give you just a brief introduction about what this blue ocean strategy is. As I told you that we, in the four stages of our business, as long as we are up to the stage of stabilization, we are not entering the decline phase, we are in the blue ocean. Now here what happens is, there is a heavy competition in the market. You can say it is a bloody competition in the market, and it makes the ocean in which you are swimming, this bloody competition makes the ocean red, and it becomes a red ocean. When it becomes difficult to continue or carry on your business. So what the blue ocean strategy says is, if the red ocean is created because of the bloody competition, you have to innovate your product, process, or services, and you have to create another blue ocean. So the strategy for creating another blue ocean is nothing but innovation. So you innovate your product, process, or services and create another blue ocean. Then you will be swimming in that blue ocean where there will be less of competition. Instead of decline in the business, your graph will go above, and it will give you the growth. But you cannot guarantee that you will remain in the blue ocean for all the time. Again, these phases of business, they will come in the second innovated business also, and there will be a phase when you will be going to the recession. The strategy is, or the key is, again you have to innovate. So it is not that once you know innovated and then it is the end of the story. No, you have to keep innovating your product wherever there is a fall or there is a recession. I would say you should get signals right at this point when your business is around stabilization. That it should be a signal that phase of decline is going to come, and you should become alert at this point itself and think about innovation, innovating your product, process, or services. This is a very well-known strategy that is being used in the Western countries. Now, this nano house concept is based on basically two items. There are 13 innovations in nano housing. I will talk about only two items. Amit will cover the other items. What did I do is, it is based on a nano car. Nano car is small in size and small in price. So the nano house is small in size and small in price. How do we do that? I reduce the size of the house by 25% with efficient planning. it is not that only 1 BHK or 1 room kitchen, but all types of houses. You can go to 4 BHK bungalow and everywhere, but reduce the size by 25% and don't waste even a single square inch because it is costly and very valuable. Second and most important thing is rate of the houses was reduced by 20% by efficient economic planning. This was a very crucial part of the nano housing innovation. बिल्डर्स के बारे में एक बात कही जाती है कि वो सब कुछ छोड़ने के लिए तैयार रहते हैं लेकिन रेट छोड़ने के लिए कभी तैयार नहीं रहते हैं. The friends, there comes a time in your business when you have to compromise on the rate. रेट पकड़ के हमेशा चलने की जरूरत नहीं रहती है. And I witnessed a situation. People were cursing me when I reduced the rate by 25%. There were number of parameters which contributed to the reduction of the rate. One of the parameter was don't go for the banker's loan, go for passing on that benefit to the customer. Customer will pay you more than what the banks pay, and this has been witnessed by me. So 25% reduction in the rate by economic efficient planning. It was a very crucial. Number of ways were used for achieving this, and it will be explained very well in detail. It is explained in my book. I will quote one of the study that was conducted during 2015 for a period of 2010 to 2015 for a period of 5 years conducted by JLL, and the study was based on what is the reduction in size of the house all over the country, all over India. And what did they come out the findings with? That in MMR region, they noticed that there is a fall in reduction in size of a house by 26.4%. All the houses, 1 BHK, 2 BHK, 3 BHK, all they are reduced by 26.4%. In Kolkata, that is eastern region, the reduction in size was 24%. In Bengaluru, southern region, and 23.7%. In Chennai, the reduction in the size of a house was 22.2%. So on an average, there was a reduction in all over the India to the tune of 23%. What I proposed was 25%, and what has come out in reality is 23%, very close to the design. And from a period 2008 to 2015, Amit will talk about the projects we launched during the innovation of nano housing and the success story of those projects. How the product got sold like a hot cakes. So the concept became very much popular. I have been invited by many for a talk. I visited so many places in our country. And I would say nano housing has partly helped industry to revive from the impact of 2008-2009 recession. Let me talk some more about the book. The book has chapters on say think global, act local. This is one of the chapter, and I would quote a few cases wherein I would prove that real estate business is not a global business, it is a local business. And whosoever has tried to make it a global business, he has failed. And there are players even now in the industry who are trying to play globally, but I would from the history say that they would not succeed. Now let us take the example of these four players: L&T, DLF, Sahara, and Lloyd. These are all players. There are some more tried to make real estate as a global business, but they could not succeed. They are nowhere. Second is there are 4 P's in the real estate industry. You have to manage these 4 P's. Now 4 P's are what? First is local police. You have to manage local police. Second is local patrakar. You have to manage. Third is the local politician you have to manage. Fourth is a local PIL guy. So PIL has become a business nowadays. Anyway, Tom, Dick, Harry comes and puts a PIL on your project, and you lose. You may lose. So you have to manage 4 Ps. Then there is a third one, that is the land title, or I would say characteristics of the land. These characteristics vary from state to state. I would say they would vary from district to district within a state. And it is very difficult to understand the land title phenomenon of all over the nation. So these factors, they contribute making real estate business as a local one, because you no one or you cannot manage all these parameters all over the country. So that is why I would suggest play local, think global, but act local. There is another phenomena, think big, but act small. This is a small thing. We manage, we plan things, we design things, we assign works, but always act in a first person singular. That means you have to get the job done by yourself. You may delegate, but don't forget. Unless and until you remind that person, unless and until that you review that person, review that job, you will find that it is not done. So my suggestion would be work in a first person singular manner. I have talked about a number of things in the book. The 3 important things which our real estate industry has passed through: demonetization, GST, RERA. We have crossed through now. GST, only one drawback I would say is taking away the input tax credit. Otherwise, it is fine. RERA, I think it has now become helpful to the construction industry. Recession, I have already talked about. REIT is another thing which I have talked about in my book, Real Estate Investment Trust. I had suggested that not only restrict REIT to the commercial premises, put it in the housing premises also, though the returns are a little bit smaller. But if the rental housing takes place and housing phenomena goes on, it happens in housing industry, then REIT would become beneficial in the residential housing also. So Nano Housing book has become very popular in the industry in a short time. It became fast selling product. It is available on Amazon. A small personal advice: I would say, instead of passing your money to the bank, pass on that money to the customer. He will pay you more. He will be the happiest person. Another thing I would say is the banks and financial institutions have been benefited because of the real estate industry more than the builders. But financial institutions have been acting very harsh with the builders. They are thriving on the business of real estate industry. Real estate industry is sustaining them, but at the cost of what? The time has come to think of. So my suggestion, advice is keep banking or housing or finance institutions little bit at a distance, and come closer to the customer. He will pay you. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Now I would request Amit, my son, and Amit Havre to continue his talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. That was very insightful. Participants, you all can raise your questions in the chat box. We would be taking them up after Amit's session.
Good evening, everyone. Arshul bhai, am I audible?
Perfect. Good to go.
Yes. Just to share the screen, it is saying that I need to close Zoom. So maybe I'll try and share the PPT.
You can
from...
try now.
Oh, yes, it's working now. Yes, is the screen visible?
Yeah, it's
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect, Amit.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Namaskar. Thank you very much, Suresh sir. Let me just say it's an honor that I work with you. It's an honor that I get to learn from you every day. It's an honor that you're my boss. And I was just sharing that, just being with sir in any review meeting or any meeting that we finalize a new project or a new contract, there's just so much of learning. And I'm really glad to be sharing this platform with him today. And sir has shared a lot about the theory, about his really awesome book on nano housing. Let me just take you through all the practicals that I have seen in our organization when he has handled all these projects over so many years. Let me just say that when he's done his PhD in nano housing, it's a unique thing to have done the practical industry implementation of nano housing for so many years and then having come up into theory and done his PhD. So it is a reverse mechanism that he's done. And let me just tell him on behalf of everyone, sir, we are very proud of you. Thank you for sharing this innovative concept with us. Let me just take you through the success story of nano housing, friends. Now you can see a pyramid over here. It is said that fortune is at the bottom of the pyramid. Now let's just see what it means. Let's say the top 20% population. Is this the population that is able to afford, let's say, a house built in Mumbai, which is a luxury house built in Mumbai? 80% of the developers today are focusing on this 20% population. And hence, 80% developers today are making luxury housing projects. Now, the balance 80% of the population is being catered to by only 20% of the developers. And this is where nano housing projects come into. Now, if you look at luxury housing projects, the market is a buyer's market. And that is because supply outweighs the demand. Now, there are only few number of buyers available to buy a luxury house in the market today. And there are lots of developers offering it. At the same time, in nano housing projects, it is a recession-proof blue ocean market. The demand far outweighs the supply. And you will see that as you keep reducing the price, so if you reduce the price from, so let's say 50 lakhs to 45 to 35, 25 lakhs, 20 lakhs, 15 lakhs, for every similar window of reduction in price, the demand will go up exponentially. And let me just say that this market is not going to be satiated anytime soon. Now, let me just look at Mumbai city for now. In Mumbai, the demand for LIG housing is 282,000 houses every year. The supply for LIG houses is only 1,000 houses a year. In the MIG segment, the demand is 349,000. In the HIG segment, the demand is 80,000. If you look at the HIG segment, where the demand is 80,000, we can see that 86,000 houses are supplied every year in Mumbai. And here you can see the supply is outweighing the demand. That is why it has become a buyer's market. That is why today a buyer can come and say, this is my price, I want to buy a house. And a lot of us developers working in this HIG segment cannot say no to this customer. But if you focus on the other two aspects, LIG and MIG, you can see that the supply is much less than what the demand is. And friends, this is an opportunity. McKinsey has recently come out with a report saying that shortfall of 18 million affordable housing in India. And in Mumbai, at the same time, this HIG circle that I pointed out, in Mumbai, we have 1,500 high-rise towers, and we have one of the priciest condominiums in the developing world. Now, this is a study by Cushman. The price of a house in Mumbai is about $9,000 to $10,200 per square meter. At this price, we are one of the priciest real estate in the developing world. Now, this is something that we developers need to collectively think about. So this is what I call shortfall of homes on one side versus abundance of housing stock on the other side. Friends, this is the demand. This is the demand today. This is the picture today. How is it going to shape up in the coming time? There are three aspects to this and how nano housing is even going to grow further. The first is the people story, which is urbanization. People moving from tier 3, tier 4 towns to metros for employment, for education, for better living standards is increasing day by day. We can hear people saying, "Roj Mumbai mein train mein itne log aate hain aur Mumbai mein settle hote hain." Today, 31% of India's population lives in urban areas. And today's Indian population, let's say 125 crores. In 2050, let's say 30 years from today, India's population will be somewhere in the range of around 200 crores. And 60% of that population will be urban population. That is a trend. 60% of that 200 crores, this is a 120 crore population, will want to live in urban India. That is nearly 4 times of today's market for urban housing. Now, this is how nano housing is going to expand in the next 30 years. It's going to go 4 times. This is aided by the development story. Now, development story has infrastructure projects. We see a lot of them happening right now. We see a huge range and network of metro rails being laid out. We see the airport. Just now, the Navi Mumbai airport work is going on. Mumbai Trans Harbour Link, Sea Link, bridges, multimodal corridor. The Virar Alibag multimodal corridor is on in full swing. If I talk about the MMR region, the Samruddhi corridor, which is going to connect the east and west of our state of Maharashtra, is in full swing. Bullet train has just been announced from Mumbai to Ahmedabad. It's going to link a lot of places on the way. This is the kind of infrastructure and the push in infrastructure that we see over the last 4 to 6 years has been unprecedented in Indian history. That is the kind of growth that we are looking at. The third wheel of the story is the government story. And in particular, we've now seen the common UDCPR being sanctioned, which is now today applicable except for Mumbai to the entire state of Maharashtra. Then we have Auto DCR, e-governance, right to services bill is looking to come up. We have Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, which gives a benefit subsidy of 2.67 lakhs to every home buyer. Now, 2.67 lakhs to a luxury house, to a house of, let's say, 1 crore to 1.5 crore may seem like 1.5 to 2%. But somebody who was buying a house for 15 lakhs or 20 lakhs, for them, the 2.67 lakh subsidy is more than 10% of the cost of the house. It's a huge benefit that he gets. At the same time, affordable housing structure getting infrastructure status as a priority sector. Now, if we look at this rising picture, the only solution that we see for housing for all is the concept that Sir has today explained, nano housing. Now, as Sir told us, nano housing over the last few years, the size of homes has gone down by 23%. I would say Mumbai has outdone this also. I think in Mumbai, it's more than 23. It's about 26% or something like that. How do we do that? We optimize the architectural planning. Now, if you look at the consumer insight, and basically my advice or my recommendation to all fellow developers will be, let's utilize our Sundays and sit in front of customer face to face and sit for sales and understand this consumer insight. We see a lot of places where we can optimize the architectural planning and bring the size of the house down. There are a lot of places where there is wastage in the current plans. If we look at our entire building plan, let's say we're coming up with a new project of 1 lakh square feet. Let's just not look at sectors and nodes. Let's go into every flat, every single wall, every single room. If we can reduce that by even an inch, if it is possible, if we try and do that, the overall effect results in optimizing the architectural planning. Also, as Sir has shared, only reducing the size cannot work. We have to reduce the rate also, and we have to share our margin with the customer. When I say success story of nano housing, is because if we share our margin with the customers reward you back in such a way which is unprecedented. Now, there's a small insight here that we can look into is what kind of a business are we in? There are largely two kinds of business. There is a margin business and there is a cash flow business. And if I just ask for a show of hands here from fellow developers, how many of us are in the margin business? Let me just say, if anybody thinks that today we are in the margin business, it would not be a business that would be going on for long. We are all in the cash flow business. And apart from managing cash flow on an annual or quarterly basis, today time has come to manage cash flow on a weekly or even a daily basis, depending on our project. If we can manage this cash flows well, even reducing rate and sharing our margin with the customer will eventually give us a higher profit on the project than earlier possible. Now, this is about reducing the rate of homes. When we reduce the rate, we have to at the back end reduce our cost, right? We can't just reduce the rate and let's say, we're going to take a hit on the margins. Reduce our cost. Now, how to reduce our cost? There are a few aspects that we have successfully done over the last 10 to 12 years. One, when we choose the size of a project, let's say we choose mass projects. Each of our projects that we've done over the last 20 years has been a minimum of 500 homes. And if you can do a project even higher, maybe 1500 to 2000 homes is even more ideal for you to get in economies of scale. Now, how do you get in economies of scale? We traditionally think of us as retailers of houses. We're selling one house. But at Havre Properties, we think of ourselves as wholesalers of houses. This is a shift of mindset that we've brought in. And this is where mass scale affordable housing projects are executed. What is another success factor is that we should buy land or we should acquire projects in recession time. Today, everybody is saying it's a buyer's market, it's a buyer's market, it's a buyer's market. Let us utilize this to our benefit. When we are buying projects, this is the right time for us to buy new land, to acquire stuck projects and acquire projects which are in distress sale today. That is how, in a way, we can reduce cost. One more is save on cost of materials. Whenever we order cement, whenever we order steel, and these materials which cost a lot, we order directly from the factories. And if you plan a project which is at least 500 homes, 1000 homes, you will be eligible to buy directly from factories, avoid the distributor channel, and that will reduce a huge amount of cost. I remember when we were executing a project called Havre City, it's in Thane, Godbandar Road. The project was 2000 houses. We used to buy cement from a company in Chennai, India Cements. Every alternate day, they had a train coming from Chennai to Mumbai. And we said, one bogie of this train, we want every alternate day. Now, when you order a quantity of this size, naturally, you get two things. One, you get a good rate, which saves you cost. Second, you get credit. Now, I'm sure a lot of us developers working right now, today, we're working in March. A lot of us are having to pay advances for our cement. But let me just tell you, we've never paid an advance for cement. In fact, the credit line extends not just to 30 and 60 days. It can go up to 90, 150, or even 180 days if you work in huge quantities. Now imagine if we spend on credit and we sell houses on down payment, how will the cash flow cycle look like? It is something that completely turns our business model on its head, and it changes our entire outlook on how we are to do business. Next thing, we lower the overheads for construction. Obviously, when you're working in projects of huge size, the overheads, your staff salaries, number of engineers, your electricity, your water, a lot of things, overheads can be reduced. Even the cost of manpower is reduced when you do mass housing projects. This also reduces the overheads and maintenance for society residents. Imagine you hand over a project of 500 houses with just one swimming pool. Suddenly, the swimming pool maintenance is not heavy. In Mumbai, I see a lot of projects. In fact, we've done a lot of projects in the 90s where we've handed over, the society no longer fills water in the swimming pool because it is less number of people in the society. To fill the entire swimming pool is a huge cost. This is something that lowers the overhead. When you have 500 houses and only one swimming pool to fill, it doesn't feel like a huge cost. And that is how the maintenance overheads for the society are also reduced. Next, to reduce the cost, we use technology that I'm going to talk in the coming slides. And last but not the least, this option that Sir talked about, minimize debt or go debt free. Now, let me come to technology. Technology, I've used this in a context. I've made 3 charts to make our projects faster, cheaper, and better. By faster, I mean save time. By cheaper, I mean save cost. And by better, I mean save rework or save additional quantities and make the quality better. Now, all these materials, if we use autoclave aerated concrete, AC blocks, they make our construction faster, cheaper, better. You can just go through this slide. There are materials like ready cut and bend steel, which are faster and better. They're not cheaper. They're slightly more expensive, but it reduces the steel consumption by 3 to 4%, where you don't overlap the steel bars. Prefabricated columns and slabs are definitely faster for execution. You can also control the quality of casting. Better curing and higher strength is also achievable. Ready mix concrete, I think most of the industry have now adopted this. RMC is definitely faster than site mix. It is not really cheaper, but it can help you when sand is not available. We face a lot of issues in availability of sand, but RMC can bypass that. Whether it is better or not, we have a divided opinion, because the quality of RMC suppliers today has not reached to a level where we can definitely say that the quality of RMC is better than site mix concrete. There are admixtures and plasticizers that improve the workability and the strength of the concrete, and mortar mix for brickwork and plaster. The second part of technology to make construction faster, cheaper, better is tools and equipments. Like installing a crane on the site will definitely make it faster. It can also become cheaper depending on the scale of the project, depending on how many floors you have to go. Shuttering formwork, we've seen a lot of projects come up in Mumbai which are employing Maiwan, Doka, Perry, these kind of shuttering formworks. And if you go in a project of scale, when I analyzed this about 5 years ago, it was profitable and it became cheaper for more than 3,000 units. Today, they've even reduced the cost, that if you're manufacturing 1,200 units in a housing project, beyond that, this shuttering formwork, let's say Maiwan formwork, will become cheaper and will give you definitely better quality, and it will be faster. There are other technological advancements, CCTV cameras for surveillance to avoid theft, fingerprint scanners, labor attendance, architectural, structural drawings on email and cloud. I know a lot of developers have still not used cloud technology to share architectural, structural drawings, and there might be instances where we use a previous revision of a drawing and rework happens. Training of manpower. We've started a Hargrave Real Estate Training Institute. I will speak about this not today, but some other time. But definitely it reduces cost, it skills your manpower, and definitely motivated manpower makes better buildings. There are other things like batching plant, MS scaffolding instead of the traditional bamboo scaffolding, earth movers, lifts, hoists, winches for construction. The third part of technology is procedures, online systems, and ERPs. Now, all these things that we do, tracking of work progress, updating clients about the work, measuring performance against the target, billing, allotment, payment of taxes, etc. All these things can be improved with the use of technology, and the cost can be reduced. I come to this important point that Suresh sir briefly spoke about, the debt trap. Friends, today, the single biggest challenge to business, and I would say the single biggest killer of entrepreneurs and businesses, is debt. If we look at the current lockdown that we've all seen, if you look at your construction, what happens is when you take debt from a bank, if there is a holiday, your construction is not happening, but the bank interest is still getting charged. In the daytime, you're doing construction. In the nighttime, you're not doing construction, but the bank interest is not stopping in the night. If there is a pandemic, you stop construction for a huge amount of time, but does the bank stop your interest? It does not stop your interest. In this pandemic, we've seen a lot of businesses shut down for the lockdown. A lot of businesses give up on revenue. We have seen homeowners give up on rent. We have seen employees give up their salaries. We have seen everybody give up some less or more amount of money due to the lockdown and due to this pandemic. The only person who's not left a single rupee, guess, that is banks. In fact, they've managed to charge interest on interest. It is something that amazes us, that how can we still work with these banks, and how can we let them get into this model where we are charged anywhere between 14, 16 or 18%, plus we pay an upfront processing fee about 1.5%, 2%. If we go through an intermediary, we pay a brokerage of 1.5%, 2%. That is something that kills us. In the coming slide, I'm going to share how much of a stakeholder are financial institutions in our project. Let me just share a small example. Let's say we're working in a project in Mumbai and a customer takes a home loan of 1 crore rupees at a nominal interest rate of 8% for a tenure of 20 years. Guess how much interest the bank will charge him. This is a simple EMI calculator. It's available anywhere online. The bank will charge him 100% interest. His 1 crore will turn into 2 crores for the bank. Now, let me appeal to all the developers. If we are making a house of 1 crore, how much is our margin? Depending on where we're working, and in today's day and age, a margin of a developer is anywhere between 10, 15, 20, at max 25%. So a house that we are constructing and working very hard for 4 to 5 years and making 25 lakhs on a house, the same bank makes 4 times of what a developer makes. Now, if you would realize that if banks are profiting so much from real estate, they would treat real estate really well. But do they? They do not. They do not give us favorable interest rates. They do not offer favorable terms. In fact, banks, a lot of banks have blacklisted the real estate sector. They say, March mahina aa gaya, abhi real estate ko loan nahi denge. So friends, is it possible to do debt-free projects? Is it possible to work without a debt option in our project? The answer, friends, is Nano Housing. And we've proven this. A lot of our projects that we've done, I'll share project examples in the coming slides, are debt-free, done with zero loan from the banks. And like Suresh sir said, if you give the same amount of discount to a customer, let's say you're working on a project, let's take ballpark figures, a 1 lakh square feet project. And let's say the construction cost is anywhere between 2,500 to 3,000. So let's say the construction cost is 30 crores. If you take a project loan at 14 or 15% for the next 3 years, you'll end up paying anywhere between 10, 12 to 15 or 18 crores on interest, depending on your drawdown periods. Now, let's just imagine this 12 crores translates to 1,200 rupees per square feet of your project. That means if you don't go for bank financing of your project, you can offer a 1,200 rupee per square feet discount to a customer. That's right. Now imagine a customer getting a 1,200 rupees square feet discount on your project wherever you are working. Will the customer be happy or not happy? And you are going to make the exact same profit by giving a 1,200 rupee discount per square feet to a customer. Now, this is mind-boggling. At the same time, if you offer the same 14, 15, 18% to a bank, let me ask all developers here, have you seen a bank be really happy and come back at the end of the project and give you a gift or some sort? The answer is obviously no. Banks are never happy. So like sir said, like Nano Housing book says, focus on the customer, give a discount to the customer. At the end, giving your project, giving your inventory, giving your flat at a lower price to a customer is any day better than giving a loan, paying a loan and paying an interest to the bank. One more thing, on the topic of reduction of cost, when we talk about reducing cost for the project, the single biggest factor of how we can reduce cost is by reducing time. I've seen a lot of Nano Housing projects fail, and they have given a bad name to the affordable housing industry. And a lot of other developers have seen them. I won't name them. They've seen them and they say that, you know, affordable housing is not worth it. You cannot make it happen. The single biggest factor of why they failed is because they failed to minimize time. Now, a Nano Housing project is typically, I'll share with example projects, is typically where you sell the houses at a lower cost because you're not going for a bank loan. That means you sell the houses before you start construction. Imagine you sell the houses on day one. The customer gives you 9.9% as an advance in today's payment schedule of RERA, and then you do an agreement and customer gives you 10.1% more till the next stage. When you get 20% advance from the customer and you are getting credit, remember we talked about economies of scale, buying cement and steel directly from the factories, you're getting credit. That means you're working on a positive cash flow model. There is absolutely no reason for us to not minimize time. And friends, doing construction on time is no rocket science. The only thing how we'll achieve construction on time is if you pay your contractors and laborers on time, you minimize their billing hassles, you minimize their delays. I've seen this from example, quite a long time ago, there used to be contractors lining up in our office, you know, sitting outside my cabin, ki saab bill de do, bill nahi mila, ye hua, wo hua. Today, we've changed the model on its head to create a situation where I tell all my contractors, the 1st of every month, you have to submit your bill. The 15th of that month, I'm going to do an RTGS payment to you. and we've practically reduced the contractor waiting time in our office to 0. Not a single contractor has to visit a developer's office for the bill. And guess where they will spend this time that they save by not going to the developer's office? They will obviously spend it on the site. They will make better buildings. They will be more present, more attentive. And if they paid on time, definitely they will work on time. Your interest costs minimized. Your people, the customers that those buy homes, they are paying, they are staying either on rent or they're staying in some other place. That rent is also minimized. And overall, your overheads, your staff salaries, everything is minimized. So one of the critical, most important factors of creating a successful nano housing project, and without which it cannot happen, it cannot be successful, is by saving time. Now, sir also told us about reconditioning some of our barriers. So this is something that I'm going to talk about, how to make a nano housing successful project by reconditioning some of our barriers. Sir talked about कि builder rate छोड़ने को तैयार नहीं होता. A builder will take a last mile funding, a builder will go to institution, will take FDI, will go to a bank, will take Swami fund. A lot of funds are available to take opportunity of this kind of a time for builders, but will not sell at a discount. Now, something which is readily available in the market, which customers are asking to you upfront, if we start doing that, we can avoid a lot of hassles. Again, reconditioning our mental barrier. I see a lot of projects that are defined. We need to understand, friends, that we are not making a home for us. Now, the people that we are, we need to understand the consumer needs. Consumers are okay with having a slightly smaller bedroom. Consumers are okay. You need to understand, this depends on project to project, obviously. But wherever we are doing a project, before starting the project, before marketing the project, before starting construction, we need to understand the needs of the customer. What size of a toilet are people looking at? Now, there are a lot of insights that go into it, and most of the insights do not come from research agencies. Guess where they come from. They come from us developers sitting every Sunday on a site and talking to customers, selling houses. If a house is sold, very good. If a house is not sold, even good, because they give you lessons of what you could have changed to sell that house, and you can implement that in the next project. Now, design a project that the market needs. We ourselves may not agree with it. I mean, I would like a particular kind of Italian marble flooring, but does my customer really want that? I would like some kind of a fancy shower in my bathroom, but the customer really want that. I would need a separate foyer area before my living room. I would like a particular passage area between my living room to bedroom, but does the customer really need that? These are questions that we need to do based on consumer analysis. And when we answer these questions, we achieve optimization of architectural planning. Now, customers asking for a discount and lowering the price, I would say, is not a threat for the project, but it's a huge opportunity, because the customer is giving you an option to sell at a lower price and not go in for debt financing and not go in towards taking a loan on your project. Now, a lot of developers see customers asking for discount as not good, but I would say if a customer is asking for discount, it means two things. One, he's genuinely interested in the project, and that is why he's sitting on the negotiating table. Trust me, in today's time, a lot of developers will give their tooth and nail even to get a customer on the negotiation table. So when a customer is asking for a discount, sit down, negotiate, and close the deal is something that we work on, and that is how you make nano housing projects successful. And lowering this price is a good opportunity. It's not a threat. The last thing, reconditioning our mental barrier, is when RERA came out, a lot of developers were like, we'll have to share this data, we'll have to share that data. Let me just say that this is something that we've been doing since a long time. The entire paperwork, the entire file of the project is there on our site, transparently available for customers to go through. This is something that builds our credibility, and this is something that we should do. One aspect I want to talk about is our business model a social business or a luxury business? I would say nano housing is a social business where you are serving the needy of the society. Housing, as we all know, roti, kapda, makan, so top 3 needs hai. Housing is a basic human need, and making housing is a national service. Now, all you developers, you are listening to this Zoom webinar. If you're sitting in office, or you're sitting at home, or you're sitting elsewhere, just look outside your window. Wherever you're sitting, just look outside your window. What do you see? the city, the buildings that you see have been made by a real estate developer. The real estate developer has to get credit for creating the city. You'll see very less number of buildings that are built by the government. The majority of the city that we live in has been built by the real estate developer. And this is what we are into. Busting a few myths about nano housing. The nano housing does not mean cheap houses. It does not mean only low cost houses. It means that we have achieved optimization in planning. It means we have achieved optimization in our financing of the project, our cash flows of the project. It means we have achieved optimization in lowering the cost of our project by reducing on construction costs, reducing cost of material, manpower, and all that. It also means we are offering quality state-of-the-art amenities, and the project is rich in amenities. Reducing amenities is not an option, because whenever we are offering a home, that is a place where a customer is putting his lifetime of earnings, and it needs to be an amenity-rich project. That is when people are going to fall in love with the project. Also, nano housing is 90%, 95% of the time a first home project. You will not have more than 5% of people buying their second home over there. It's a first home project. So they're either coming from a already existing rental house, or they're coming from somewhere like a chawl or a slum, or some of the government established tenements which have been established 50, 60 years ago. Also, we need to offer colony living. It's not isolated buildings. It's not standalone building. We need to offer colony living and social infrastructure. Let me just give you an example. This is from our project in Thane, and where I go for flag hoisting. Now, flag hoisting, Independence Day, Republic Day, creating sports day, creating cultural days, creating festivals like Ganpati, Navratri, Dashera is something that we need to do, because the people are there in mass, people are there in hundreds and thousands, and we need to erect this social infrastructure where people can come and participate in. Towards the end, I would also like to point out that reducing the cost of the project also depends on standardization of the processes that we have in the project. Now, we've made a list of forms. If any of you is interested, you can get in touch with me and get a list of get these actual forms where our contractor, our architect, our consultant, and are all codependent on each other to check and certify the works done by each other. And all of this is related to the billing of the contractor, the architect, the consultant, and everyone. As long as you control it with billing and you control it with financial outflow, it will be controlled. If you don't control it with billing, it will just not be controlled. Before I finish, I would like to point out some of the observations on the ground. When we are on the ground working towards selling houses, we are on the ground constructing the projects. One fundamental value that we follow at Avre is we offer a full money back on cancellation to customers. There is zero cancellation charge, and right from the day of booking till the day of possession, at any point of time, the customer is free to cancel. Now, I know a lot of developers in the market have some kind of a fee, paperwork fee, documentation fee, or it is a small 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, a small amount that we deduct if a customer is canceling. Let me just pitch in and highlight this model. One, the people who are booking houses in nano housing are really simple, small, middle class, low middle class people. At the same time, when a real estate developer is offering full money back, the customer is sure to go and tell this to at least 5 other people in his office, in his society, in his home. Builder ne pura paisa wapis diya. This doesn't happen normally, and this creates a tremendous word of mouth and builds credibility for a brand. I would request everyone, if you're doing a nano housing project, if you offer something of this sort, friends, by deducting a 5,000, 10,000, we're not going to add anything to our valuation. We're not going to add any profits to the project, but the kind of credibility, the kind of word of mouth that this will generate is huge. Second, keeping the site open to visitors 24/7, 365. And keeping all documents on display transparently. I've seen a lot of projects. We've all seen social media examples of projects where People are not allowed to visit the site from booking till about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years till they get the possession. On the day of the possession, they're given the key and then they go out and point out ki ye sahi nahi hai, wo sahi nahi hai. I mean, all these problems could be easily solved by timely, letting the people see the site transparently, solving their grievances and problems promptly. The third one is to always keep communication channels open. We see a lot of cases coming into RERA where I am doing conciliation in RERA, and where a lot of cases come in. A lot of people go to court. A lot of people go to consumer court because of a discrepancy between developer and customer. Friends, if we keep a communication channel open between the customer and us, you can set up a department. You can have your numbers with the customers. Customer will obviously always come to you first with his grievances, and if you solve it promptly, I don't think nobody has the time, patience, money, their efforts. They don't have to go to RERA or court or anywhere else. So a lot of these discrepancies, a lot of these battles can be easily avoided. One more aspect is be accessible. As a real estate developer, sometimes a customer just wants to come and give you a box of sweets that today I'm getting the possession of my house, or somebody wants to point out some grievance which can actually be a learning insight for you, that my wash basin should have been facing this to avoid some kind of a pipeline, or anything that the customer wants. Customer wants their puja room in a certain direction. Customer wants their kitchen to face in a certain direction. All these things, if you are accessible, if you meet customers directly, that also can solve a lot of problems. Last but not the least, we should be empathetic to customer and his changing financial position. The last 1 year, a lot of turmoil has gone through a lot of people. A lot of people have lost jobs. Their financial positions have changed. A lot of people who booked their house before the lockdown today may not be able to afford the same house. We need to show empathy. We need to be able to be there to solve the problem if they want. Some people have got promoted over the last year. A lot of companies have done well also. Maybe they want to buy a 2 BHK instead of a 1 BHK. That's also an opportunity. So we should be open, we should be accessible, and we should always keep these communication channels open. Let me take you through some of the projects. Havre City, as I shared, this project is in Thane on Ghodbunder Road. Nano housing project launched by Suresh sir in 2008, 2009, this period. The 2,000 homes in this project were sold out in the first month. This is a success of that size. This is the day when we handed over all 2,000 houses to the customers in one evening. There was one evening where 2,000 families came to the project and took their keys. This is Havre Pinnacle project in Kalyan. We sold 500 homes in 2 weekends. We launched on a Thursday, and the next Sunday, 500 homes were sold out. One key learning in this project that we had is customers went on a box price of homes. This is something we launched in 2015. We had a 1 BHK costing at 18.99 lakhs. This is in Kalyan, and a 2 BHK costing at 24.99 lakhs. So the customers really liked this idea of a box price, including all taxes at this particular location, standardization of costs. That was one learning from this project. This is Havre Pinnacle when it is in construction. This is Havre Pinnacle when it is handed over, people enjoying the amenities. Now, even though 1 RK is 18 lakhs, there was a one room kitchen in this project that costed only 11.99 lakhs. Still, the amenities are best of the class. As I said, it should be an amenities rich project. Havre Paradise is another project we launched in Kalyan. This project, when I talk about amenities, this has a cricket pitch, this has a football ground, this has a swimming pool, this has a clubhouse, this has a tennis court, and the homes are starting only from 13 lakhs. But because there are 500 homes in the project, all these amenities do not cost or do not pinch the developer, and they can be easily managed at a lower cost. Now, this is not a political meet. This is a meet of all the customers who have booked their house in Havre Paradise. This is our Bhumi Pujan day. And you can see that 500 families have come for the Bhumi Pujan of the project, and this project was sold out in the first 4 weeks. Again, Havre Paradise. Havre Nakshatra is the project where we handed over recently. It's in Palghar. we handed over 750 homes to customers, 750 families gathered in this location. Again, rich in all kinds of amenities, including the most luxurious of all, like clubhouse with a snooker table, table tennis, carom, and gym, and play area and swimming pool and everything. This is 750 families taking the possession at Havre Nakshatra Palghar. One key insight from this project was that, especially for Havre Nakshatra Palghar, I would say one learning was that people need not always want their nano homes to be smaller. Now, this is a project in Palghar where a lot of customers from Borivali, a lot of customers between Borivali to Andheri come and buy their homes. But when they're staying in Borivali or Andheri on rent, or they're staying with their family and coming and buying a new home, they need not always want a smaller home. This is a place where we had smaller 1 BHKs and larger 1 BHKs, but the larger ones sold out quicker than the smaller ones. Shows us the importance of understanding the consumer mindset, understanding the consumer needs before we launch a project. This is Havre Neptune Residency in Palghar, a project of 1,500 houses. It was supposed to be launched, but the pandemic delayed this. This is a project launched in 2008 when Sir Suresh Sir launched Nano Housing. This was one of the first Nano Housing projects to be launched, where 800 homes were sold in the first 2 weeks. And on one weekend, 500 homes were. So you can imagine Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3 days, 500 homes are being sold. So if you want to draw parallel to Nano Housing, you can say any movie of Salman Khan getting launched. You know that the first weekend is going to go for 100 crores. That is exactly how a Nano Housing project looks like. And every time a Nano Housing project has launched, and Suresh Havre sir has taken the initiative, we've always seen the first weekend book homes in hundreds of quantities. This is again in Navi Mumbai. Havre Nirmiti is a project. 1,200 homes have been handed over in a place called Kamote in Navi Mumbai. These are some of the projects. A lot of our redevelopment projects under the brand name Intelligence I'm not sharing today because we're only talking about Nano Housing projects. And all of these projects have taught us something, and we have a different key learning from all of the projects. And I tried to share most of them with you. If there are any other things that you want to ask me, we'll throw the forum open for question answer. Last but not the least, before we go to question answer, I want to leave you with a thought-provoking slide. Can you see this image? Do you know what this is? Let me tell you, this is architects before AutoCAD came along. Architects doing a town planning drawing before AutoCAD came along. And this is not very old. This is quite in the recent past. But if you look at it, there are so many changes happening every single day, every single month, every single year in technology that the entire industry is changing. I want to ask you this question. What are some of the skills or some of the things or some of the ideas in our industry that you think are going to change in the coming short while? And I would like people to post in the chat box or give a reply. So I thought about this question today only instantly, and I came up with two aspects that I think will change in the coming short time. One is telecalling executives who are calling, who are emailing, and who are messaging may be replaced by artificial intelligence and chatbots. And this has already started in the industry. We've already experimented with a couple of AI services. And when you call up a developer, the first call getting answered is by AI. And just to filter the incoming callers, understanding the requirement, understanding their location, understanding what kind of a house they're looking for, and then that is filtered, it goes on to actual telecalling executives, reducing the requirement of our telecalling staff, reducing our manpower costs. Also, when I've tried this, there is absolutely no way when a caller can say whether they're talking to AI or they're talking to an actual human being. It's that good. You need to experience this to know. Second, I may or may not be true here. You're free to have your judgments on this. Print ads, which are very, very expensive in today's time, will easily get replaced by other forms of advertising, especially social media marketing. So these are two of the things that I think will change in the coming time. You are free to post more things that you think are going to change, and I look forward to learning from you also on this question. Let me throw this question. Let me throw this forum open to questions and answers to Suresh sir or to myself. You are open to post your questions. Thank you very much. You can reply to me on my email or on my social media channels.
Thank you, Amit. What a perfect combination of theory and practice. This is a very remarkable session. Harish, Charmi, over to you all to moderate the Q&A session. In the meanwhile, Amit, you could pick up questions from the chat box. You could also have Sir answer them. And
sure, I'll pick up the.
Yeah, once the questions are exhausted there, we can, Harish, you could have the participants ask live questions.
I'll directly read out the questions. So it's
yeah. That'll be easy then. Yeah. Amit, Harish will read out.
Sir, the first question from our attendees is, what type of construction advanced technology being adopted in nano housing?
Yeah, so hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Should I repeat the question again, sir?
Yes, you asked about what kind of construction technology is used in nano housing.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so the entire slide that I made on technology used in nano housing, we're using every single one of them. We are employing cranes, we are employing AAC blocks. When you use AAC blocks, you reduce the dead load of a building, and although they are more expensive than normal traditional bricks, still the entire cost, the overall cost of the building goes down because the amount of steel goes down. And
so, can I go for next question, sir?
yes, am I audible now?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think Harish, Dr. Srinivasan from JBIMS, he has an interesting question. So would you like to ask the question live to Amit?
Yes.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Amit, I really appreciate that. It's a fantastic topic on how do you reinvent your business. Now, smart products are replacing conventional product. So how do you fit into the profitable business model in nano housing when you use the latest technology?
Thank you very much for the appreciation, sir. I think a lot of smart products that have come in. We are understanding the new products getting launched every single day, and we are experiencing, trying, sampling a lot of new products, and we find that most of the products are helping us save on the cost or giving a better experience to the consumer. Now, we've experimented in one of our projects, and we've realized that if we spend at least 100 rupees per square feet more on the kind of amenities that we give on project, a consumer is willing to spend at least that much more on the price of the house. And we've sometimes gone on and said that if we're spending 100 rupees a square feet more on the amenities of a project, consumer is sometimes ready to spend or to give us 200, 300, 500 rupees per square feet more on the price of the house. So smart amenities do add on to the quality of the project. At the same time, we should be very picky and choosy depending on what are the consumers in our project. And it doesn't work in every location, every project. So depending on the project, depending on whether I'm doing the project in Navi Mumbai or Thane or Mumbai or Palghar or on the outskirts of MMR region, depending on what customers are there for the project, I can definitely install smart amenities in the project.
So I'm glad to share that Dr. Srinivasan has written a case study on Geo, which was published by the Ivy League. So Ivy League B Schools, it's an official Ivy League case study. So at this point, I would also propose that the nano housing concept can actually be made into a case study which could be proposed at the Ivy League level. So I will take that up separately with JBIMS.
Thank you. Actually, you highlighted that because the new course which is emerging in strategy, how do you reinvent your business? In fact, that is one of the flagship course which is offered in most of the premium IIMs as a part of advanced strategy. I think this initiative which is done by Avare, something commendable. How do they reinventing the product without diluting the quality and make it into value for money to value for many? That is a masses. That is absolutely bottom of pyramid which you talk about CK Prahlad. I think it is a huge scope for developing a wonderful case. Thank you for connecting that, Arshul.
Perfect.
Amit, I'll connect you and stay in this
Definitely,
regard.
sir. Thank you very much.
So we have our own domestic Ivy League case study, which should come up positively soon. Great synergies here. Harish,
Yeah.
any further questions?
Yeah. There is a question from Preeti Nair. Is nano housing and affordable housing same? If no, how they are different?
So I think that's where we spent the last hour and a half understanding how affordable nano housing is different. Nano housing, I mean, the way Suresh sir has envisioned it and the way we are executing is not just about making the cost lower. It's about a lot of things. It's about optimization of architectural planning. It's about having a cash flow model that gives you a positive cash flow rather than taking a loan from the bank. A lot of things that we discussed over the last 1.5 hours. So I think there's a big difference, and maybe sir can highlight anything that we didn't cover.
Yeah, what I would say is nano housing is definitely affordable housing, but affordable housing may not be really affordable housing. Affordability is not properly defined. A house costing 5 crores may be affordable to someone, and a house costing 25 lakhs may not be affordable to someone. But nano housing is definitely a affordable housing.
Very well put across. Harish, next question.
Yeah. Can we use Vedic plaster in substitute to internal plaster? Any studies?
Which plaster?
Vedic plaster. Vedic. From Mr. Dalvi.
I'm not too sure what Vedic plaster is. If you can detail on what Vedic plaster is.
So I'll move on to next question. Whether nano housing faced any challenges during COVID and what are the steps taken to overcome?
Yes, definitely. Like every other industry, nano housing faced a big challenge in COVID. In fact, it is still facing because the local trains have not become fully functional. If you look at all of the projects that I shared, the common bond between all those projects is that they're located close to local train railway stations. And local train is definitely, as you can say, is a lifeline of Mumbai. It's also lifeline of nano housing in the MMR region. So that was a big challenge that nano housing faced because most of the houses are sold on the weekends, Saturdays and Sundays. And if the local train is not working, then people don't show up to buy houses. That was a big challenge. Secondly, a lot of people buying nano housing are from the lower middle class section, who are, most of them are salaried employees, and salaries took a hit during this COVID period. So a lot of people who booked houses were, after the pandemic, I mean, after the lockdowns were lifted, they found themselves not being eligible to take a loan of that similar size. So there was definitely a case where some rates had to be revised, and there was definitely a case where a lot of people could not afford their house any longer. But definitely looking forward, let's hope that things come back, the economy comes back, and we would definitely request the state and the central governments and also the municipal and respective government authorities to help this kind of a situation. They gave a very good incentive for houses by reducing the stamp duty. That was definitely very, very beneficial to nano housing, and saving of 3%. You can imagine 3% is huge for a guy who has a salary of 20-25,000, who's working. Maybe he's a clerk in Mantralaya, or who's working in railways, or who's working as a rickshaw driver, or who's working in any other industry, who's working in private sector also. Somebody who's making 15, 20, 25,000 a month. For him, a significant benefit of 3% was given by the government, and a lot of people took that up. A lot of people appreciated that, and a lot of fence sitters took this decision. for booking their houses and registering their agreements to make and avail this benefit. We would request the government, we have already requested the government to prolong this subsidy of 3% in stamp duty that they've given. Let's see what kind of a decision, and we are hopeful they will take a positive decision.
The next question: are we expecting more this kind of studio flats or nano housing project will be coming to MMRDA region in coming days from other developers as well?
Many developers have adopted the nano housing concept, and they have launched various projects in and around Mumbai, that is MMR region. And we at Havre Properties, we are also launching in next 2 years more than 15 projects we will be launching of nano housing in and around Mumbai.
MMR region is the heart of nano housing, I would say. The kind of progress, the kind of growth that MMR is going to see over the next 10 to 15 years is going to be unprecedented by any other region in India so far.
Now we'll open the floor for direct question answers. If any attendees have direct questions, please raise your hand so I can give you a chance to speak.
We've received some on the chat box also. What is the core team a developer needs to get in place to make a nano housing project successful based on your experience? For example, what size of team would be required to execute a project of 1,000 nano homes at leanest possible to make sure all the sales tech, etc. is executed properly? Something that we've experienced, experimented and done over the last 5 or 6 years is to make our team very lean, and as you pointed out, to make it leanest possible. We used to have, I mean, any developer has people in an architect's department, a purchase department, quality control, legal department, land buying department, marketing department, recovery, a lot of departments, and we also had a lot of departments. What we've done is we've now outsourced most of the activities depending on the region. So for example, we're doing a project in Kalyan or Thane or Palghar, we appoint the best architect of that area to now work on that project. We outsource a lot of quality control activities to some of the best consultants working on that area. The only in-house team that we have, and I think that is essential to make your team lean and to make a project successful, is the marketing staff and the recovery staff. So anybody who gets money into the company is in-house, and anybody who makes money go out of the company is outsourced. That is a good model to begin with.
Mr. Nasir, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Good evening, sir. My question is, where do you see the real estate in the coming decade? Is there any chances that the complete buying model will be replaced by a rental model? Because due to the high cost of construction.
So in the coming time, I think the future for nano housing definitely looks good, because as we saw in the next 30 years, the 4 times the size of the housing industry is going to be coming up. 120 crore people are going to be living in urban India, and definitely one of the key aspects to looking at lands or looking at areas for nano housing is if you look around the transportation hubs, which till now was only the local train and now is going to be the metro. So wherever you see the network of metro going, you will definitely see a lot of nano housing industry coming up in all those areas. Havres are definitely going to be in those areas, and also a lot of other developers are going to come and start nano housing projects in that area. So that is the future. The question you asked about rental housing, one thing I would like to say, in the last 1 year where we faced the lockdown, more than anything else, the single biggest product of which we've realized the value is having a home of your own, because everything else failed in this pandemic, and only your own home is something that kept you safe and kept you sane through this last 12 months. So a lot of people are coming to realize this. A lot of people in the millennial generation who earlier said that we can, we'll only rent houses, we can keep moving, every year and we live in the best possible houses wherever they are and we can keep shifting. But today they've realized that, you know, having stability for your family, having stability for your future generation is of utmost importance, especially considering something like a pandemic comes along again, and we just can't rule that out if it comes along again. So depending on this, I say that home ownership model is definitely here to stay. Than the rental model. Rental model will continue for people who still cannot affordable the home ownership model, but home ownership model is definitely here to stay.
Thank you, sir.
Nasir, I would like to add in this. See, the rental business is flourishing very well in the Western countries, and particularly because of the rental laws prevailing in those countries. In our country, we have a Rent Control Act, which is really a killer for the house owners. Getting a house vacated is really difficult, and that is why it is happening. I hope our organization take up this issue before the government, that they should change or modify the Rent Control Act and allow rental business to flourish in our country. Because there are communities, a student community, which cannot buy a house. They are floating communities, and even the people in the first 5 years of their employment, they are the floating communities. So they will need rental housing. So Rent Control Act has to be amended, and that is a need of the hour, so that the rental housing business grows up. Thank you.
Mr. Rohan D'Souza, you can unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Rohan D'Souza from Mumbai. First of all, I would like to thank Amit ji and Suresh ji for a power-packed informational presentation. It was super power-packed and super informational. The whole presentation looks like you've mastered the art of no wastage, even in presentations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Now I've realized, I mean, I understand that you have done a lot of financial analysis of each decision that, you know, you have to take in a real estate business. Now, particularly in nano housing, what do you think, how important it is, or how critical or useful, beneficial for a developer to take the landlord, the landowner, as a partner in the project? Does it add value, or how, I mean, does it better the cash flow? What's your take on that?
I think it's definitely very, very beneficial to take the landowner on a profit sharing or on a project sharing model, wherein it reduces your capital cost to begin with by a huge extent. Also, the landowner, instead of selling you land, if he comes in a joint venture or a joint development model, he makes a lot higher benefit, a higher profit than he would have otherwise made by selling that land, taking that money and investing that money elsewhere. So definitely landowners who work with us show that kind of confidence in the project. They know that if Havre is going to buy land, I get the money and I put it anywhere else in the market, it's not going to make that ROI that the project of Havre, the nano housing project, will make. So definitely it's good for the developer also, it's good for us also, it's good for the landowner also. And for the entire project, it definitely strengthens the cash flow model, where you don't front load the project with capital cost, and definitely you reap the benefits in the long run. Both the partners reap the benefit in the long run.
Thanks. That answered my question.
Somebody asked me, generally in how many months do you complete the nano housing project of 2000 houses? The 2000 houses Havre City project, we started in October 2009, 14th October 2009, on 24th March 2013, which is 3.5 years. 42 months, we handed over all the 2000 houses. We had a big celebration on 24th March 2013, where all the 2000 families had come, and it took 3.5 years to complete that project. That is why the project was profitable. If that would have gone on 2, 4, 5, 6 years, it would not have made sense, and it would not have finished. A lot of projects launched on the similar time, which stretched in their completion schedule, which stretched in their construction schedule, were no longer profitable And it's a downward spiral. Once you miss the bus of finishing on time, it's a downward spiral. Complaint starts happening. And generally in nano housing projects, what happens is you sell the flats before. So your selling cost is fixed. The turnover of the projects is more or less fixed. But the cost of cement, steel, labor, everything from petrol, diesel, and every single material keeps going up year on year. So the quicker you finish the project, the lower your cost is going to be. If you don't finish on time, you're going to have cost overruns of magnanimous portions, and the project can no longer complete.
Continuing the same question, do you acquire land parcels to develop, or you go for a JV for doing nano housing?
We do both. We do both, but definitely, as I said, JV is beneficial for both of the partners, for the developer also and landowner also. So if I buy a land parcel, I can do one nano housing project with the same amount of capital. In the same amount of capital, I may be doing 3 or 4 projects in a JV model. So definitely doing JV helps us to make this concept of nano housing reach more number of people, and ultimately we are all here to fulfill the dream of owning a home that somebody's had. And for a lot of the buyers, for majority of the buyers in nano housing, this dream is going to be fulfilled only once in their lifetime. So definitely joint venture basis is a good model that we look at.
I would like to add in this, see, one of the experience, I had purchased a land at one location and executed a project of 500 houses. That was sold like hotcakes. And then after completion of that, in the mid time somewhere, I wanted to buy another land parcel. People started talking about JV. I entered into a JV with one person and he was benefited hugely. Next to that, now I have completed 3 more projects, but nobody is ready to give the land on ownership basis. Everybody wants to enter in JV basis so that they can encash the benefit being in JV. So they also understand, landowners, farmers, they have also started understanding the benefits of JV.
There is one interesting question from attendee. For how many hours do you sleep? You handle so many aspects.
Let me just say that Suresh sir is not just handling nano housing, he is handling his work at Shirdi Sai Temple, he is handling work at a lot of other places. He's doing his TV shows, he's on to writing his 10th book. So he's doing a lot more, and I would also like sir to address this question.
When I was taking charge of Shirdi Sai Baba Temple, I held a press conference and a journalist asked me the similar question. He said, you are very busy in Mumbai, you have this much of business, and how will you be able to spare time for Shirdi? I answered him, see, if a person is capable of doing 10 jobs, he can take 11th also, and a person who is not doing anything cannot take up any job, cannot do anything. Busy person is always free. That is what my opinion of
absolutely well said.
Busy person is always free. What you need to be is you be organized. That is all it takes. So busy person is always free. That is my formula.
What a wonderful session. I really appreciate the time that both of you all have spent. Especially acknowledge Dr. Kavita Lagate and Dr. Srinivasan Iyengar for staying through the session. And any concluding remarks that you would like to share, Dr. Kavita Lagate or Dr. Srinivasan? Please go ahead.
So it's an absolutely fantastic topic as far as the nano is concerned. As I told you, it's reinventing their business model. And every industry need to be today reinventing their businesses, starting from automobile to any industry today. And I think Havara is doing a phenomenally commendable job. And today session is more or less like an education session, not only to builder, even academician, we also learned it something very interesting. I appreciate Amit and senior awareness, sir. And I wish you, if time permits, please do come to business school and interact with us because these things need to be incorporated to the people. Thank you.
Sir, I have a small piece of information.
Yes, please.
I have learned management. I'm into the management and I have been managing the temple for last 5 years. Second largest temple at Shirdi.
Amazing, sir. Fantastic. That the kitchen also is one of the wonderful case.
Yeah,
How they made the solar-based kitchen.
I'm into writing a book on temple management. And
So wish to meet you soon, sir. Both senior as well as junior awareness. Wish to invite to JB once with Ma'am Lagate, ma'am. I'm sure wish to support you. Wish to invite once for classic interaction after the COVID time.
Sure.
It'll be
It's
homecoming. It's alma
wonderful
mater
food for thought for the
for
day.
Amit. And yeah,
Thank you.
fantastic. It was a great evening and a very fitting finale. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Amit, for making this special. And it was a great session. Thank you. And all the participants can connect with Amit. Amit's with the CREDA MCHI Youth Wing as well as the Navi Mumbai Youth Wing. You all can connect with him. He's very active on his social media handles as well. So I'm sure there are many more questions, but due to paucity of time, we'll have to conclude now. But you all can take it up with him offline. I'm sure Amit will be more than happy to address the same. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.